Leaders are decision makers. Is this right or is this wrong? In this video, we want to take another view and question the statement that leaders are decision makers. Very often we use both words synonymously. Leaders are decision makers. But in many cases, that leads into not the best decision or even in a disaster for an organization. So first question, when does it make sense for a leader to make a decision? Of course, if I can rely on expertise, experience, knowledge, when I'm an expert in something, I can make a decision because I'm entitled to do that. But what happens when a situation appears I have no clue about? Something like a pandemic or a market change or a new technology appears or whatever, and I have no idea, no experience, no knowledge about this new thing. How do I want to make a good decision then? When I still stick to my role as a decision maker, probably in the best case, I just make a bad decision. In the worst case, I create a disastrous future for my organization. How can we overcome that? And I think in new leadership terms, decision making is a task that can be done by different people. And it's also a process, and it requires a certain environment for people to make decisions. And my leadership duty is not making the decision, but creating the environment for decision making. And that's a different story. That goes through different phases. The first phase is creating transparency. When a problem appears, the first question I need to ask is, do we have enough transparency about this problem? Do we really understand its roots and its impact? Have you spent time on that? And it helps to integrate more people into that transparency phase because, in the last video we spoke about different realities of different people, the way that individuals create the realities by interpretations and so on. So instead of just using my reality for making a decision, I integrate others into the decision-making process, and probably we create more transparency and more viewpoints that we can integrate in this process. It's a dialogic approach to decision-making. So creating transparency, first question is for a leader, do we have enough transparency to make a decision at all? The second phase is, do we have enough options to decide? Very often we sit in a meeting, we spend an hour into a discussion, and towards the end of a meeting we need a decision. And very often the first idea that pops up is the decision. But probably the first idea is not the best idea. So do we spend enough time and space into finding options? And do we stop this process when we have one or two options? Or do we long for 5 or 10 options that we can decide? So creating options is another phase in this decision-making process. And again, it helps if we integrate other people with different viewpoints into that dialogic approach of decision-making. And when we have enough options, then the next stage is making a decision. And instead of reporting these different options to a committee, a board, in very formal structures, and let people decide about something that they were not involved into, I think new leadership means I encourage and allow people to make the decisions on their own. So it's not me being the decision maker. I help a team or a group or other individuals for making proper decisions. And probably people mostly involved into the problem are probably the best people to make the decision and select the option they want to take. New leadership doesn't mean that managers are still decision makers, but managers become facilitators of decision-making processes. And following the dialogic phases of transparency and options and deciding helps them to probably create better decisions in quicker time. Thank you.